Hello, hello everyone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're faced with all these obstacles with seeing your children or having access to your children or visiting your children or anything like that, getting custody of your children. Uh, so it could be a very serious it can become a very serious situation.
Mm-hmm. I had a question. Is legitimate? Is I'm so sorry. Is legitimization necessary if the father's name is on a birth certificate?
It is. It still is. There are ways for you, like when you're in the delivery room and they get you to sign an acknowledgement of paternity. Some states do allow a father to acknowledge paternity through a signed document, which may be sufficient to establish legal rights if the mother agrees. But you still have, in certain situations, you still may have some issues with that. Even if your name is on the birth certificate and you have not legitimized, you still may have some issues when it comes to DFAC and CPS
Okay.
because they're going to still try to, you know, unfortunately block you out. It really depends on who is the caseworker and what agency, what county that is in. All of that matters. So yes, even if you sign a birth certificate, um,
Okay.
you could still be having some legal issues if the child is taken into custody, CPS custody.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see. So one of the things when it comes to legitimization and defects, that's the first thing they're going to ask you to do is to get legitimized. And so to get legitimized, you have to go and get an attorney, and then that attorney has to file a petition to legitimate. In that process, you can get the mother. There's a form in there where the mother signs that she is in agreement with it. If she does not sign that she does not agree, you can still get it done, but it makes it a little bit more difficult. It's just like a divorce. I mean, if you try to divorce someone and they won't sign the paperwork, it don't mean that okay, we're just gonna stay married forever and that's it. You know what I'm saying? It still can be done, but it is a obstacle, and it just makes it a little bit harder. But it could be done.
Okay. Would you happen to know specifically the rights that it would grant the father to be legitimized?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
The rights, the the rights that the father would gain by being legitimized.
Okay. So what happens when a father legitimizes? The child gets rights to, of course, to be in the child's life. You have the right to seek custody and also visitation, and also to inherit things such as like Social Security, medical insurance, other benefits associated because you're his legitimate father. Because you're the legitimate father, they can't get that.
Okay.
So basically, it's what to understand is that it's important to understand that without legitimation, a father has no legal rights to a child born out of wedlock, even if he's listed on the birth certificate or pays child support. That's a biggie too. So you can be paying
Okay.
child support, but when you're not legitimized as a legal father, they can stop you. They could block you from even having visitation legally. So you're
Mm.
paying your money, but you still so you're paying your money because you're the biological father, and they had taken child support out your check, but you don't have a legal right to the child. You don't have any legal right for visitations, anything like that. They can
Okay.
stop all of that. In the case of, I'm just going to tell you a brief. In the case of my son was in a relationship. He had a child out of that relationship, but and he met the woman here in Atlanta, the biological mother of my grandson, here in Atlanta. The father, I'm sorry, she was married, and that husband was incarcerated. Okay, so because she was married at the time, even though they wasn't together or he was incarcerated, because she was legally married, legally that her husband is my grandson's legal father.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they've had DNA, they know that my son is a biological father. They know that my grandson lived with his father, my son, and they was in a relationship. They had an apartment and all of that. It does not matter. That is who she is legally married to is his legal father. Even
Okay. And this question might be a little off the subject, but and vice versa. If you have a man and wife, if the husband has a baby out of wedlock, would that how would that work? Do you know? Would
you
the
know
would the
that
woman be
you know what
would his wife be the legal mother of?
I don't think so. But that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of double standards going on here, but that's a good question. I doubt it. I
Uh,
because with a mom, the mom has the baby,
okay.
that births
Okay.
the baby, that's her
Mm-hmm.
baby.
Okay.
But with the
Okay.
father, it's a little different.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, yeah, unfortunately. So, and I find that even when you deal with maternal family and paternal, to me, and that's just my opinion, and I know that a lot of maternal family have a lot of problems too, what I'm saying, when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
CPS and defects. So I just feel like they are treated differently because the mother is the mother, ain't no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And she has, when you birth that child, you have all 100% of the rights.
Okay.
Okay, and to me, it seems like your family too. But when it comes to the paternal, the father side of the family, to me, we treat it a little different.
Okay.
That's just, you know, in my situation, that's what I see. And like I said, I see a lot of maternal family that has been mistreated too. So I'm not saying that, but
Mm-hmm.
but they do, seem like it's faster, easier, just in case that just our case, like if you had some issues with defects, and I came and said my grandchild, I want my child. It's easier. It seems like it's easier for them to just say, okay, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and with the fathers, it's a little harder.
Okay.
Okay. So let me read my notes. So, Georgia is one of the only states. A lot of states, if you are the Biological father, you are automatically the legal father, considered the legal father. Not in Georgia. In Georgia, they're two separate entities. So you can be the biological father and not the legal father. It's like you got to deal with both issues. So you got to become the biological father by DNA. You do a DNA test now. You are the biological father. Okay, we know that 99.9%. They still don't make you the legal father. So you have to go and get an attorney and to get legitimized. You can do it. You could probably do it yourself, but it can be complicated. Doing all the paperwork and make sure you have everything right, especially when you're dealing with CPS and DFAC, because to me, they trying already, you know, to keep the child a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
They're already trying to keep the child. So you come in there with some paperwork that is not right,
Exactly.
you have the problem. Case in
Okay.
point, case in point with my situation with my son. We hired attorneys and they still got it wrong. Kept coming back and this was wrong. You have to notify different parties, the attorneys, you got to notify everybody. All that has to be right. And it can be complicated. So,
So
um,
about how much time would you say it takes to get legitimized?
well, you have to do all the legwork. You have to file the petition. Then you have to notify all of these people. If the other person, let's say the mother have an attorney, you have to notify the mother, her attorney. You have to notify all these people. So it could take some time, probably a few months, I would think, to get everything done, and then file it in the court, and then the court's going to give you a court date. Then you have to go in front of the judge, and
Yeah.
the judge determines whether they want to grant your legitimation or not.
No.
Uh, so that happens. The problem with my situation with my son, what added a monkey wrench to our situation is that the mother was married. That
Mm-hmm.
added so much turmoil and everything to our situation because she was married. So we had to notify where you have to normally notify just this person and that person. And maybe the mother don't have an attorney, so you just notifying the mother, your attorney. It's a little more simpler, but
Okay.
ours got complicated because of that. You file it in superior court. The only person that could, I'm gonna go back. The only person that can file a legitimization is the biological father only. So the mom can't just. So you have a baby by someone, and you just go down to the court and say, "Well, I want to get him legitimized as his father." That is him right there, and I'm gonna fill out all the paperwork and do it. No, he has to do it.
Okay.
The father, the biological father. It's filed in superior court in the county where the child or mother resides. So if they live in Fulton County or they live in wherever county they're at, that's where you file the paperwork for the legitimization. But if the child is in foster care, two things. If the child is in foster care and CPS, de facto custody, you have to file it in juvenile court where the case is. Because if you file it in superior court, they're going to have a problem with that. And the reason is, I learned later on, because mine was filed in the wrong court, is because the Superior Court judge that is looking over the legitimization in Superior Court don't have all the facts. They don't have all the facts. They don't have all what's going on in juvenile. They don't, so they would rather you do the legitimization, file it in the juvenile court if there's a juvenile case. So Superior Court does legitimization and also juvenile. So if you file in the Superior Court, you don't have any court. The child, the child lives with the mother in the home. You live in your home. There's no CPS or anything. That's fine in Superior Court. But when you have a juvenile case, like we do, well, my grandchild is in CPS de facto custody. It should have been filed in juvenile court, the same court that they dealing with that has him in custody. That's where you go through for that. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It makes sense now to me, but at the time I didn't, because you hire an attorney for legal advice. They should when you hire somebody to do a legitimization, you assume that they know what they're doing. Sometimes that's not always the case.
Oh, yes.
We've had a lot of things done wrong in my case, which has prolonged, which can prolong your case because then they're not doing things properly legally, and they're doing it, and they're saying they quick to say, "Hey, pay me $5,000," and then they don't do it right.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately. So, um, it says what must be proven is the father has a bond or wants to establish a bond with, and that it's in the best interest of the child. So they want to see when you file your legitimation that it's in the best interest of the child to know you. They're going to do their due diligence as far as that you don't have a history of being a pedophile. You don't have a history of child abuse. You don't have all these things, and then now you're trying to get custody of your child.
Okay.
They're going to look at all of that and make a determination that, yeah, it's okay. The cost of an attorney varies, just like anything, just like legal. You can get somebody that'll do something for $3,000, $7,000, $20,000. It's the same thing. So you have to do your research, do some free consults, and see what they charge and how much they charge for the legitimization, what they cover. I had an attorney that charged got an attorney. They said they handled the county that my grandchild was in, but then they got an attorney way far away, and they charged me travel fee, and they was charging $350 an hour, and they charged me every time he went to the courthouse, 2 hours
Oh,
away.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So the money that I paid, they almost took half. I mean, they took thousands.
Mm.
And then they said, well, of course we charge for travel. I said, you that can't say that you service, I'm gonna give you an example. You shouldn't. What's ethical?
Mm-hmm.
You can't say I service Metro Atlanta, but you live in Alabama, and so you're gonna charge me $350 an hour times 2 hours, 3 hours to get. You live.
Mm-hmm.
Then you don't service this area. You don't service
Exactly.
this area. You can, but that's not right. Savannah's in Georgia, but Savannah's 4 hours away, so you can't say, yeah, I service Atlanta, but you get an attorney that lives in Savannah 4 hours away, and they drive to Atlanta, and then you charge me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's wrong. So you have to be
Yeah.
very careful. And I'm telling people this to look out for these things because it happened to me. You have to be careful. And if somebody had told me, knowledge is power, hindsight is 2020. Now I know. So of course, going forward, when I talk with an attorney, I ask them, do you have a travel fee? Now when it's 15 minutes away. If it's 15 minutes away, for the guy, I understand that. But I'm talking about when it's the distance that I'm going, and depend on where their office is, I need to know what the travel fee is.
Oh, yeah.
And a usual travel fee after that, an attorney told me maybe $100 or 200, not $350 an hour. Yeah. So there are some pro bono things. I think they say you can go through legal aid. In the past, I know legal aid. I mean, it's very limited on what they can help you with. But it's definitely worth researching and maybe calling legal aid and see if they could help you, or it definitely push you in the right direction of attorneys that may do legitimization for you.
Okay.
Now they say that they say the typical cost is $1,500 to $3,000. I paid $5,000, and another time I paid $3,500 because, excuse me, the attorney didn't do it right. So I maybe it is somebody out there that charged $1,500. Maybe I just didn't call those people.
Okay.
So you just have to do your research. I'm going to talk about a little bit about DFCS policy and legitimization. DFCS, like again, generally does not recognize full parental rights without the legitimization. So you basically are not the father until you get that legitimization done. They cannot discuss anything with you. They could tell you a few things, but the real what do you call it, meat and potatoes of the case, they don't have to tell you anything. A father without legal rights may be excluded from the case plan and visitation, which in my case is what happened with my son. That because he was not legitimized, they had the right to not let him see his son. And we've had difficulty with getting legitimation done correctly. So it has been 2 years since we have seen my grandson. And that 2 years taken into account. Court dates are not, you go 1 month and then 2 weeks later you go back. No, it may be 3 months, 4 months. It's time between those court dates.
Yeah.
So but they have the legal right to say you're not the legal father, so we're not going to let you see him. DFCS must consider legal father first. So, of course, in this situation, the legal father with my son did not even know my grandson or have any kind of bond with him.
Mm-hmm.
But he still was considered the legal father. But he had a background, so he was null and void. But he put a monkey wrench in our case because he's still a legal father. Even up until this day, he's still considered the legal father. And I'll explain towards the end of what we had to do when it comes to legitimation with that.
So establishing paternity for the father doesn't do anything for him legally?
No.
Okay.
And with our case, we established my grandson had been in custody 3 months, and we established paternity. And they still, after we established paternity, they said we need to do legitimation. Which, like I said, I had a lot of monkey wrenches. I had hired attorneys who didn't do it properly. When we think it's proper, we look at it. Okay, we got it done. We go back to court and they say you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or you didn't do this, or you didn't notify this person, you didn't notify that person, and so that kept on knocking back off. Now we're starting over.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the attorney that you paid to do the legitimation, and they say, okay, yeah, we could do that. We could do that for $2,000 more. Why would I have to pay more money to do what I paid you? You told me the legitimation costs this much. I paid you that much. To go to court, they say it's null and void, and I have to pay you more money to do what you should have did in the first place.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre. But so of course I didn't pay that. So here we go. Attorney number 2. Get another attorney. They didn't do this right, or my second attorney did not do notifying the legal father because he's incarcerated now properly as well. What she did was she notified the legal father had an attorney as well. They gave court appointment. So she notified the legal father's attorney, I guess, and gave him some paperwork to sign. And then he took it and gave it to the legal father to sign, that basically saying that he's been notified. That was incorrect. They said that legally she can't do that. It has to come, I guess, directly from her, the attorney, directly to the legal father, the notification. But she sort of did it the back doorway. They said we couldn't do that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that was the second legitimation that was filed. And the time is ticking. The time is ticking. The clock is ticking. So every time they make an error, and then we have to go back and do this and do that and get another attorney or what have you, my grandson is still in care, in foster care.
Yeah.
And again, they were trying to say because my son was not the legal father, then I was not the legal grandmother. So they didn't want me to see him either. I had me and my son. Neither one of us seen him. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy because I think it makes sense that establishing paternity should make that person the legal father.
In some states, but not Georgia.
Okay,
Not Georgia.
so Georgia's is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So unfortunately. Yeah. Again, I'll mention about what happens. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to what happens if the mother is married. So in Georgia, in many states, the husband is presumed to be the legal father, even if he's not the biological father. Paternal biological father must file legitimation, and the court must terminate the legal father's right before granting legal status. So when we went and filed the legitimation and everything, my attorney, the Superior Court did in Superior Court. The Superior Court judge granted it and said, "Okay, you are legitimized. You're the legal father." But what we come to find out later is that you can't have two legal fathers simultaneously at the same time. So basically, what has to happen is the legitimization that my son's attorney filed has to include basically saying, Your Honor, we want to get legitimized. We want you to A, terminate the legal father's right, and B, grant my client, who is the biological paternal father, the right the right to legitimate. So you have to do sort of a twofold. You have to do both.
Okay.
What they didn't do that. They only did the first part, and so they kept knocking it down. And we not really, like I said, I didn't know, and they act like they didn't know. I mean, obviously. So we are having to file another legitimation, which is like the fourth one, because of errors. Hopefully this one will get, and we're doing it in juvenile court. So we included to terminate the legal father's right, legitimate my son, and did it in juvenile court, the same juvenile court that his case is for my grandson.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Okay, so if it says if the biological mother objects, which we talked about earlier, a mother's objection does not automatically block legitimization, but it can complicate the process. The court would consider the child's best interest, relationship between the father and the child, stability. If no agreement, case goes to a contested hearing. So now you gotta, battle, just like in a divorce, battle back and forth with the mom. Why do you want him to be the legitimate father? And then, of course, unfortunately, she may come and say you're this, you're that, you're abusive, you're all these things, then you have to dispute those things that she's saying, but just basically, gather your evidence of involvement. So basically show where you was in the child's life, show where you attempted to be involved, and maybe she kind of blocked you out, hire an attorney, and everything like that is some of the things you can do. Maybe you pay child care and get your receipts and show, hey, I've been sending gifts over there, I've been buying them clothes, I've been paying for half on child care, just to show your involvement. And that would really definitely help your case. Okay. Some of the key takeaways, is don't wait. Time matters. They try to use, any instance they try to use time against you. So try to get it done as quickly as possible. It's basically legitimation is necessary to protect your rights as a father. And even if defects is involved, you still have the right to pursue legitimization. They say what I read, they say that if there's not a statute of limitations or well, you're trying to do your legitimization and it's too late. It's never too late, but they can try to hold that against you. So depending on the judge, they can say, it's been too long. You know what I'm saying? Now you're trying to come into this child life and legitimate, and they're 7 or 10 or, something. So the faster you get it done, the better. In our case, with my son, he was a part of his life, and everything. Had, thank God we have pictures. You don't even think when you're taking pictures, you're not taking pictures. You're not taking pictures to think that you're going to be in court one day. You're taking pictures for fun, just for fun, and memories and everything like that. But I've had to dig deep and try to find all kind of pictures of any instances where I had a relationship or did something with my grandson, uh, uh, birthday parties, Chuck E. Cheese, different things like that to prove that I was even in his life. So I tell everybody, take pictures, take a lot of pictures. You never know. And the same thing with my son. He had a lot of pictures of him interacting with his son and everything like that, which is going to help, help his case once we go back to court and do the legitimization again. It also helps that two other Superior Court judges granted the legitimization, so we hoping that we won't have any issues, any problems with that with the new judge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much. Do you have any questions that come to mind?
No, I think we touched a lot of bases.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that have, children out of wedlock and different things like that. And like I said, it's not a problem until it's a problem. It's not a problem.
Exactly.
It wouldn't. If my grandchild was not in custody and my son had not legitimated or whatever, and she, has her, still in Atlanta, and we going to get him every other week, it would have been no problem. But when it became a problem, is when we had some issues with defects. And now, we're fighting, going through all these things, and which would have been way much easier if my son was all whether legitimated or the biological mother was not married. That would have been, I think, a whole nother scenario. Would have been a whole different situation here. But we have to deal with what the cards that we dealt, and this is the cards we dealt. We're just dealing with it. So,
yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining me. If you have any questions, you can definitely give us an email at kinshipcrisis@gmail.com. You can send us an email with any questions that you may have, and I try to lead you in the right direction. Of course, you always can go and get you a free consult. A lot of attorneys offer free consultations for your situation and see if they can get your questions answered and see what you need to do for legitimization and everything. So thank you all for joining, and you all have a good evening.
All right. Good night.